Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Folks, we're going to ask you if you like this show, just like, subscribe, share, and make lots of comments. That'll help our algorithm, help us grow. So this case, one of the things that's been baffling to me, and of course, Tyler Robinson, the accused shooter of Charlie Kirk. One of the premises I'm going to raise right at the beginning, the second shooter, and I don't mean that literally. I realize there is no second shooter, but what I do want to raise is, did Tyler Robinson have accomplices? And too many people in the media and also law enforcement were jumping, he acted alone. Where the hell did you get that from? It's been right now 6 days since the incident, right? Can we decide, are we that good at investigation, especially digital investigation, that we can come up with that investigative conclusion? And they were coming up with that conclusion a day or two afterwards. And a lot of it's the media that's jumping. Oh, there's no indication. We're getting indications now that there was some online discord, there was interaction, that he was telling people online what he intended to do and what he in fact did do. So that makes me, an old-time New York City copper, a little suspicious. Not a little suspicious, a lot suspicious. So I don't want to be quick to be the one that says, oh, there's no indication that anyone else is involved. Stop it. Stop it. Let the law enforcement people do their investigation. Let the FBI do their deep dive into the digital world of the internet and find evidence that we may not even know about right now. But stop with these reports that there's no indication. How do you know? Are you a professional investigator? Are you working on this case? Are you a digital expert? I think not. It seems like many people, both in Tyler Robinson's family and in his world, his close little freaky world, actually, of some of these online people that have questionable motives, and some of them actually applauded what he did. So let's wait and see. He's not going anywhere, right? He's in jail right now, and we'll go over what they charged him with. But let's not jump to conclusions and say, oh, he totally acted alone. So, folks, hold on to your hats. Hold on to your loved ones. Hold on to your thoughts. Hold on to your service dog. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
In the radicalization of Tyler Robinson, how does a young man go from online posts to real-world violence? These messages don't just reveal a plan. They may reveal a mind in the process of being poisoned. The investigation into Tyler Robinson quickly became an investigation into his digital life. According to Utah Governor Spencer Cox, Robinson's family told investigators that he had become more political in recent years, adopting what they described as a leftist ideology that was very different from his family's conservative background. Friends and family pointed investigators towards the internet's deep, dark corners where Robinson spent much of his time, specifically mentioning Reddit and the gaming world. It's in this ecosystem that authorities believe he was radicalized. This doesn't look like a case of joining one specific organization. Instead, it appears to be a slow burn radicalization, fueled by an online culture saturated with irony, memes, and extremist ideas that blur the lines between jokes and genuine threats. The evidence found at the scene supports this theory. The bullet casings recovered by police were engraved with taunting messages that seemed pulled directly from this internet subculture. One reportedly read, "Hey, fascist, catch." Another contained an internet notices bulges, OWO, what's this? These aren't the clear-cut political statements of a traditional assassin. They are the language of a generation steeped in a bizarre and often toxic online world. The messages are so opaque that they've been used to argue he was a radical leftist, while others have suggested they're simply the chaotic language of online trolling. This points to a new and complex challenge for law enforcement. The path to radicalization is no longer always a straight line. It can be a chaotic journey through forums and chat servers where disillusioned young people are exposed to a cocktail of violent content and extremist ideologies. The FBI is now investigating everyone who was in the Discord chat with Robinson, not necessarily as accomplices, but to understand the environment that may have fostered his actions. Did others encourage him? Did they think his talk was just talk? Or did they fail to see the warning signs buried under layers of irony and memes? These are some of the questions that beg to be asked and answered. And to ask and answer these questions tonight, I have two co-hosts with me to help me because this is a complex topic we are covering. And joining me first is retired NYPD Sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College in Connecticut, attorney. Welcome to the show, Professor Mike Geary. Welcome, Mike.
Bill, good evening. Good to see you. Thank you for having me on the show.
You know, Mike, I'm glad you're here because I'm going to hit you with some big words later, and I know you're the smart guy in this triumvirate here. And also joining us tonight is retired NYPD detective and straight out of Brooklyn, New York. Welcome to the show, retired detective Phil Grimaldi. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you for having me, Billy. And I have a question or two for Mike, a legal question at that.
Okay.
Well, that's great. So the big thing here now, Mike, and I think that it seems that people jump the gun in these investigations, and they're so quick to say, oh, he acted alone. There's no evidence whatsoever. But you know something? If you've ever worked in investigation, you know that you never jump the gun. You never assume something, because when you do, you get smacked right in the face with reality. Like, wow, I spoke way too soon. I should have shut my mouth. Mike, could there be, and is there, well, we don't know that for sure, did he have accomplices? Did he have people suggesting to him or even mind controlling him to do something as heinous as he's accused of doing? Your thoughts?
Yeah, Bill, at this point, early on in the investigation, we know he was the only shooter at the scene. And so now you got to look to see, is there anybody who was working in the background who was legally, criminally a co-conspirator, somebody who provided some sort of material help, providing him with a getaway car, giving him cash to buy a firearm, providing with the firearm, giving a place to stay, to hide out, hiding the firearm after he asked for it to be picked up. Those are real material acts that will take someone from being a bystander to actually being a co-conspirator, either before, during, and after the fact. And that, in a murder case like this, that puts you in grave danger right there, legal danger. However, having said that, there are probably many people who already knew what he was going to do and perhaps were urging him on. They were aware, and they were actually cheering him on the sidelines. While that may not rise to the level of criminal conspiracy where they can be prosecuted, it is sure disturbing. And we know that a number of people and a number of websites, people on those websites knew what was going to happen because he seemed to have indicated what he was going to do ahead of time. And that is very disturbing to law enforcement and to criminologists and to homicide detectives investigating this case.
You know, when they talk about the new radicalization tool being the internet, I would have to assume, and they say you should never assume because you make an ass of you and me, but I would have to assume that there are some on the internet that could get people to do things that maybe they didn't intend to do based on mind control and based on commonality of ideology. And someone who's maybe weak or going through something or is mentally ill, they're more suggestible. Phil, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that some of the things that Mike just pointed out kind of fit in exactly with this case. We know that there was some chat on Discord and messages going back and forth. And he talked about the fact that he wanted to take out Charlie Kirk. Now, I think that the feds probably already have, and along with the police in Utah, have already looked into every conversation that he had. What I mean by that is they'll go into the phones and social media of the person he was talking with. But I think there's a defense, and I think Mike kind of touched on it, where if you're talking about something online, the defense would be, well, I didn't know he was actually going to do it. So there is that gray area when we're talking about conversations online. But I do feel that there is encouragement that was done in this chat group on Discord when they were talking about and making very horrendous remarks about Charlie Kirk and his intention to kill him. So, we have people like you said, Bill, I think you just pointed it out. Maybe they have a mental incapacity or some type of a mental illness, and they're easily controlled, or they're easily led on to think that taking out a person like Charlie Kirk is acceptable. And we did talked about it earlier before we went on the air. There was a poll that showed different groups of people in high 40s or even low 50s that believed that it was justifiable to kill President Trump or Elon Musk. So, you have this ideation that's out there, and there's people that believe in it. They're promoting it. And I think it's actually very, very dangerous. And this young man that was 22 years old, I guess professing his love for his roommate, thought that it was going to be something that was going to be very positive to kill Charlie Kirk. And he followed through on his plan. Unfortunately, Charlie Kirk had to pay with his life. I think that if any of these people that were on this Discord conversation platform, if they would have done some research or listened to any of the stuff that Charlie Kirk had said, they would have realized that he wasn't homophobic and he wasn't anti-trans, so to speak, but he was more of into the scientific matter of male and female. So I think that they did a disservice by not educating themselves, and look where it led to. It led to the horrible, horrible death of a human being, Charlie Kirk.
This is WABC News.
Major developments here emerging in the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Tonight, the FBI says it has recovered the suspect's DNA from the scene and from the towel around the high-powered rifle found in the woods. Law enforcement sources telling ABC News tonight that the suspect allegedly laid out his attack, tracking Charlie Kirk's schedule and studying a map of that campus. And tonight, we are hearing the first harrowing calls to 911. And the suspected gunman, Tyler Robinson, the FBI says, allegedly sending a chilling message to a friend saying, quote, "I have an opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." And from Capitol Hill at this hour, Speaker Mike Johnson leading a vigil in Statuary Hall. ABC's chief national correspondent Matt Gupman leading us off again tonight from Utah.
Tonight, law enforcement sources painting a detailed picture of how Charlie Kirk's accused assassin, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, allegedly plotted his attack, saying Robinson tracked Kirk's schedule for days, studying maps of the Utah Valley University campus, and at some point before the shooting, allegedly sending a friend this message.
The suspect wrote a note saying, "I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it."
Authorities say Robinson took his shot from the roof of a campus building about 175 yards from where Kirk was speaking, firing as Kirk was answering a question about mass shootings.
Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
What came next? Sheer panic. And you can see it in these images and hear it in newly released 911 calls.
The Kirk speaker at UVU just got shot in the head.
Okay, what's the address?
UVU. And what happened?
He's a speaker, famous guy, Speaker Kirk.
Where
he just got
EVU
shot
are
in the middle
you?
of his speech.
Another caller describing a moment of crisis. Kirk whisked off stage.
He got rushed off in an SUV, a black SUV. He got right in the neck, so I don't think he has lungs.
Okay, did you see did you see it happen?
Yes, I saw everything.
In the chaos, authorities say Robinson slipped away. Cameras capturing a shadowy figure on the roof, then scampering across before dropping to the ground and running off. And tonight, the FBI says they found Robinson's DNA on a screwdriver left on that roof and on a towel wrapped around the rifle they found in the woods nearby. Investigators say Robinson meticulously planned his attack. They say this security video obtained by TMZ shows him arriving on campus before he changed into the familiar outfit seen in those widely circulated photos. Black cap, dark sunglasses, and a shirt with an American eagle on it. This video shows a man matching the suspect's description, appearing to limp. Law enforcement sources telling us he was walking that way because he'd hidden his rifle underneath his clothes. Authorities say that after the shooting, Robinson shared messages with his roommate indicating what he had done. Utah Governor Spencer Cox says that roommate did not have any knowledge of Robinson's plan and was shocked.
His roommate was indeed a boyfriend who is transitioning from male to female. He is cooperating with authorities.
The New York Times reports that after the shooting, the suspect also exchanged messages in a group chat on a messaging app. Several of the group members apparently joking that Robinson resembled the person in those photos. And in a message described by the Times, Robinson responding that the man in the picture was his doppelganger and people were trying to get him in trouble. Tonight, the Washington Post reporting that the day after the shooting, Robinson confessed to friends in an online chat, writing, "Hey guys, I have bad news for you all. It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this." The next day, Robinson turned himself in, his own father and a family friend driving him to a nearby sheriff's office. How would you characterize the sum total of evidence that you have built against Tyler Robinson?
The evidence is enormous. We are confident that we have the sole shooter responsible for Charlie Kirk's death.
On the right, Kirk now mourned Vice President J.D. Vance filling in for his slain friend today on the Charlie Kirk show. And like President Trump, Vance blaming the left for the surge in political violence in our country, ignoring recent attacks against Democrats like the assassination of Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, who were shot and killed in their own home just over 3 months ago.
People on the left are much likelier to defend and celebrate political violence. This is not a both sides problem.
The administration tonight vowing revenge. And David, that suspect is now an inmate in that jail behind me. And authorities say that so far he has refused to cooperate. And investigators describe a young man who was deeply immersed in the online video game culture. They say that his family members described him as becoming increasingly political of late and critical of Charlie Kirk. Now the DA plans to formally present murder charges tomorrow, David.
So, there was a couple of things with this report. That's the first time I ever heard anyone say that he had the reason he was limping because he had the gun in his pants. I never heard that before. I'd heard he left the gun behind in the woods and it was recovered by law enforcement. So that could be ABC News.
I think that's going towards the college, though, Bill. That was before he did the shooting.
Oh, so that was prior to.
That was the prior. Yeah, that was the video prior. He changed clothes. He was on the campus earlier in the day. Then he came back with the dark clothing on. First he passed through there with the shorts and the red T-shirt. Then he must have changed and he went back and he's walking with a limp because they believe he had the rifle secreted down his pants.
The other thing was that distance that he dropped from the roof. That was no joke.
No, that was.
It looked like he at least dropped at least probably 6 feet.
No, I think it's more than that. But
Phil, it is. But I'm saying if you measured from his feet to the ground, I would say it was at least 6. That's a long way to drop.
Yeah.
It could have been 7 feet, could have been 8 feet, but to drop and he dropped to grass. I mean,
that's what helped him. That he was soft to grass. If it was concrete, he might have a
high distance, but to a rooftop, and I was like, oh, I can't believe I did that. And I was wearing my stupid squad shoes, so I didn't have sneakers to break the fall a little bit. And I was like, That was really stupid.
That was concrete. He might have snapped an ankle or something for sure.
Yeah. The other thing is, now look, we always talk about the science of investigation here. And when, every case we present, we always get those that say, how could you know that he did this? Well, they're trying to shut the door on every one of those people in this. And one of the things, and they got this evidence right away, was his DNA found on the towel that the gun was wrapped in. All right. His DNA found on a screwdriver that apparently he used to take the gun apart because he wanted to remove the stock so he could fit it, I believe, inside his backpack or inside that thing he was carrying when he went off the roof. So DNA found. The other thing is that gold evidence was the spent shell that was still inside the firearm, which was a bolt action 30-06, and it had some text on the side, and so did the other live rounds inside that rifle. Then they find a shell or a bullet in his apartment with the exact same type of text. So that is extremely, extremely powerful evidence. And I still don't like the way that they're saying, oh, no one knew about it. Everyone knew. His family said he had radicalized. He had moved his ideology to extreme left. So don't you think he was talking that ideology on the internet with people who were in the same ideological bent as him? Mike, your thoughts?
Bill, I agree because that's just where you get support. If you're in some sort of group and you want their approval, you agree with what they're saying, you will make your similar feelings, because you're in a group of like-minded people, you'll make your feelings well known. And so he may not have talked the same way to his parents, but because that might set off triggers and alarm them, but he probably felt really free. And I can imagine if he could write messages, and he wanted that shooting, Charlie Kirk shooting, to send a message. That's why he wrote something on the bullet casings. He probably has a lot more stuff that would shock us, probably already, and now the police know, on his cell phone or on his internet chats, if they haven't been destroyed or they're recoverable. But that ideology, you're in a group of like-minded people, you're looking for support, you're looking for people to approve, oh yeah, somebody should take him out, whatever it happens to be, whatever the ideology is, you're looking for approval from your peers because this is a group that you value. So yeah, absolutely, that he's got a lot more messages that are much more radical, that he would speak to that group rather than his family.
100%. A. Sanchez from the chat. Gunpowder residue testing was performed on the individual originally identified as the shooter. Based on the information currently available, I believe Tyler was the only shooter. A. Sanchez, you're right. Mm-hmm. But some of these wackadoos in the crowd were admitting to being the shooter. They're just crazy. They're out of their mind. So is law enforcement supposed to ignore them, or should they take them into custody as they did? Yes, they did. And then when they found out they didn't do it, they let them go. But when you hear these congressmen going after Kash Patel, well, you made 2 mistakes. They didn't make any mistakes, congressman. You sitting there in your fat ass in Congress, that's law enforcement. That's what you do. You grab suspicious people. They cut them loose. They did everything correctly. No one has 20/20 vision at the time when something happens like this. You have to sort through what you have and act upon what you have right there. It becomes clearer as time moves on. Investigation takes time. I will say that till the day I die. Phil.
Yeah, Billy, I believe that the gentleman who was arrested or detained in the early stages of the shooting that was saying, I did it, I shot him, I do it again, he was charged, Bill. He wasn't just set free. When they determined that he was not involved in the actual shooting, I believe he was hit with 2 counts. I forget what they were, perhaps obstructing governmental administration, something of that nature. But, with regard to these chat rooms on this Discord, now, you have to understand and just put yourself into the mind of these people that are trans or whatever. They're probably rejected from average everyday chats or just everyday society. So now they find a spot where they feel comfortable. They're going to hear pro whatever it is that they believe. So now they're hearing this information. They feel comfortable there. They're not rejected. They're accepted. And I think that that's where they're open to these suggestions of violence. Now, Robinson was in love with a person who was transitioning. So now it's like if somebody was attacking your love, your wife or your husband, in his mind, I'm trying to say that he felt that Kirk was attacking their way of life based on the information that they're hearing on this chat room without doing their own information and their own research and hearing. When you hear some of the interviews or you hear some of the stuff that Kirk did on college campuses. I saw one yesterday that he had a young man on there and he said, "Are you a Trump supporter?" Yes. Are you a very, very committed Trump supporter? Yes. Are you upset that Donald Trump had a gay speaker at his last rally? And he said, yeah. He goes, "You're not a Trump supporter. That's not what Donald Trump is for." Like he rejected that someone was upset that there was a gay speaker at a Trump rally. So if they had did some research and listened to some of the words of Charlie Kirk, they would have realized that a lot of the things that insults that were being hurled at him and accusations that were being made were just not true. But going back to this Discord, they're in a comfortable place. They're hearing all this constant negativity and they're painting him as the devil. And now Robinson professes his love for someone that's trans. He gets his hands on a rifle and he commits this heinous act.
Phil, that's why I think it's much too early to say that he acted alone. Schmitty Smacks from the chat. Detective Phil, he also had child porn, etc. on his phone after the arrest was made. She's talking about the guy, what was his name, George Zinn?
Right. I think he was charged with that. That's correct. He was charged with the obstructing and he was possession of child porn.
God's secretary, the guy that was saying it was him, ended up being charged with CSAM. He admitted he likes little children. That's sick people out there, right?
Well, it's sick to say that you did it at a mass shooting like that and say, I did it, I do it again. And what it did was it threw the police off. It threw law enforcement off. It was actually, like stymieing the investigation. They believed that they had the perpetrator in custody. And as we know, he wasn't in custody. So
Claudia Landesdorfer, thank you for the $2 super sticker. Can Americans heal and unite after this? We're
hopeful anyway.
I'm always an optimist, but right now we're pretty far apart, Terry K from the chat, thank you for the $10 super sticker. Was Robinson radicalized by media politicians? Terry, I think what they're saying is that, and it's early in the investigation, I like to make that clear, it is that he was radicalized by the internet. And, you could see, I think every one of us here that grew up, say, myself and Mike are baby boomers. I don't know, Phil, you were a baby boomer?
Yeah.
We were born during those years. And we weren't raised with cell phones, obviously, or for computers for that matter. But what is it, maybe 20 years ago, cell phones were introduced to us and people of our age. We're just as addicted as kids, We're just as bad. And there is an addictive nature to the internet. There is an addictive nature to having instant information at your fingertips every minute. And think if you're mentally ill or you're radicalized in some way, and you're radicalized because you're on the damn computer 8-10 hours a day, some 12 hours a day, and this ideology is being pumped into your mentally ill brain, you may do something like was done in this instance. And he could be talked into it. That's why, Mike, I wanted to ask you, everyone's quick to say that Lance Twiggs, who was his lover, and I'll put up this is his lover, a male transitioning to a female. His name is Lance Twiggs. I'm not clearing him yet. And I don't think anyone should be clearing him yet, because law enforcement is going to keep talking to him until at some point, they say, something, we may have to lock this guy up. He crossed the path of probable cause. And someone pointed out to me the other night, and I used to repeat this verbatim when I taught college, In custody plus interrogation equals Miranda. And if any one of those are not there, you don't have to read Miranda. So, Mike, they may still be pumping him for information until he crosses the Rubicon of probable cause. Your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, Bill, when I saw that video of the Utah governor saying, he's the sole shooter and the boyfriend, roommate is cooperating fully, as if the door's closed on that. It's a little disconcerting. You're right. Keep that door open a crack and don't make him any guarantees about like with an immunity or whatever else until you get all the information and you keep going back and visiting him. Exactly. And as you say, you visit him in his place where he lives or where he works, and you get as much information as you can. You don't have to read a Miranda, whatever the situation is. Let him speak freely and help you as much as you possibly can figure out the who, what, where, when, why, and and how of this criminal investigation to prepare for trial, because that's what you're doing now. You're preparing for trial. And so you don't make him any promises. You don't say things publicly because you don't have to retract them. So you don't do anything like that. And you might come to the conclusion that he's a dupe, that he didn't really know, or you may come to the conclusion that, what he said to you about not knowing early on and being horrified by this is actually a facade to make him appear to be innocent. But you don't ever make those sorts of statements so early in investigation. There's a lot to do, a lot of technical information to go over, a lot of email chains and text messaging and posting on websites. And you want to be able to know this kid better than he knows himself before you make a decision whether or not you're going to arrest him or not.
Mike, I happen to think that he definitely has some involvement. I want you to think about this. I'm going to go to commercial, but I want you to think about arresting someone in this case for criminal facilitation, criminal solicitation, or conspiracy. Once we come back from commercial, I'm giving you that to think about. We're gonna tackle that, folks. This is our new sponsor, FanDuel. FanDuel is the new sponsor for the Police Off the Cuff podcast. FanDuel. Football season's finally here. Have you checked out the latest odds, futures, and win totals on FanDuel Sportsbook? Think the Bills are headed to the Super Bowl? You can lock in your bets today, whatever your game. FanDuel Sportsbook delivers the latest lines, futures, and specials so you can join in on all of the action. I'm eyeing college football. Who's your pick for the Heisman? Plus, I'm loading up on parlays and player props like Saquon Barkley breaking his own single-season rushing record. With the Major League Baseball postseason right around the corner, FanDuel has you covered with player specials and unique props. Whatever your game, FanDuel Sportsbook delivers the latest lines, futures, and specials so you can join in on the action. FanDuel, the new sponsor of the Police Off the Cuff podcast. We're thrilled to have them.
Bill, can I make a comment about Lance Twiggs?
I want to go to the criminal facilitation. That's why I threw it to Adam. Conspiracy, Mike. Let's first, what would you need to arrest someone for conspiracy?
Well, you need two people. So it would be the shooter in this case and one other person who is facilitated in a meaningful way the commission of the crime or escape from the commission of the crime, after it happened. So it has to be somebody who's intertwined, who's essential to the success of the crime. Someone who's provided some meaningful, substantial act in furtherance of the crime. Even though they're not the principal actor, their assistance, their facilitation is essential. And that's criminal, facilitation in a nutshell.
What about conspiracy?
Well, conspiracy to the two people working together. They both have the same, they both know what the outcome is going to be. In this case, it's attempted murder. So if Twig, knew what Tyler Robinson was planning and gave him some meaningful assistance, gave him money, bought the firearm for him.
Overt action.
Yeah, exactly. A substantial, substantive overt action that helped further the cause. They have conspired together. you've got the principal, and you've got somebody also who's facilitating that. They're essentially aiding that other actor in a meaningful way to commit the crime.
Phil, I know you wanted to come in, but I wanted to.
Go ahead.
While
Go
it
ahead,
was
Phil.
fresh,
I'll make the
while
point
it was
there.
fresh in Mike's mind, I wanted
Sure.
to go with that. Go ahead, Phil.
What I was going to say was, here's what I think is going on with regard to Lance Twiggs. Now, Robinson leaves the note under the keyboard. He reads the note. Police don't have the note. They have a picture of the note. So he must have disposed of the note, which means, in my opinion, I think he's in the trick bag for tampering with evidence right off the bat. Now, they're not going to go ahead and charge him with that because he's giving so much information. The corroboration of whatever he tells them, that's going to be the important thing. Detectives are going to have to corroborate what he's saying to be true. What I mean by that is they're going to look through the messages. They're going to look through all the conversations. And if they find that he had knowledge of this horrific crime before it took place, then he's in the trick bag for this conspiracy, like Mike was just saying. And I think that at that point, they would probably charge him. I think based on what they're saying, they believe he had no knowledge of it beforehand. Robinson gives him the message and kind of breaks the news to him. Go look under my keyboard, and he questions it. So I think that if that is all corroborated and there's nothing that happens before the incident takes place regarding conversations and stuff like that, then I think he will continue to be a witness as opposed to be arrested or a perpetrator or a conspirator in this horrific assassination. Now, that doesn't mean down the line they can't prove, well, you know what? They had this planned and it's all part of their whole conspiracy. If they uncover something like that, he will definitely be charged. But I think the way it looks right now, and it seems like based on that very long press conference today, and they gave a lot of detail, which another conversation is I don't go along with all the detail that they gave, but I think that they're going to go with Lance Twiggs as a witness in this case, and something like destroying that note is going to be, they're not going to charge that.
Food for thought with Olivia Maynard. I'm on trans Discord, by the way. It's not what you think it is. You know, food for thought, Olivia, we don't know what it is, but that's why they need to investigate that. When Kash Patel said today there was over 20 people in that Discord, maybe 20 people knew what he was about to do, or that he confessed to those 20 people. That makes them witnesses at the very least, and perhaps worse. This is Dan Bongino on Fox.
Time this morning. Important stuff here after a very heavy weekend. Thank you for being here. I want to go back to last week on the day that he was killed. Try and clear up a few things as best we can. Did anyone in that crowd aid or assist this assassination?
Well, that's what we're looking into now, Bill. Obviously, we have a suspect in custody. It's quite clear. It's why I'm here discussing this individual. However, if this was a larger effort, there was any aiding and abetting, whether it be financial, whether it be someone who knew the specifics of it and failed to report that. As you heard the director say this morning, we as an FBI, our team, along with our state and local partners, are looking into that. We have a lot of technical capabilities, a lot of good investigative capabilities, where we can scrub that entire network, whether it's OSINT, open source intel, through social media that people posted publicly. We'll be looking at that. We'll also be dropping a lot of paper, a lot of subpoenas out there to take a look to see if there was any extended network. But I want to be clear. There are things I can say, as you well know today, and things I can't. I don't want to get ahead or jeopardize the investigation. But when I can what I can share with you, Bill, I will. We are clinging to transparency here. This is the era of the, Cronkite and Jennings generation is over. New media now is media. And we want to be sure we can do everything in our power to share what we can, when we can, while still balancing the needs of the investigation.
Okay, I heard Kash Patel 90 minutes ago in our program. I want to get to a couple of things that he made news on, but first I want to drill on this. Is there any connection at all between the person who was asking the question about mass shooters and trans killers, or was that just a stunning coincidence when that single shot was fired?
Well, we're investigating that. I don't want to say conclusively right now if there was a connection or not. Charlie was known to speak out about these issues. He was a powerful voice. it's not terribly uncommon for him to get questions like that. However, we are looking into that. Any potential connection here,
Okay, so
we're going to scrub.
I'm not drawing conclusions from your answer, but you're saying it's a possibility. Is that what I hear you saying?
We're looking into everything, Bill. There's not going to be a stone left unturned if there was anyone involved who aided or abetted. I can't say that in strong enough terms. Every single FBI asset on this team is being applied and used in this investigation.
Okay, after he fired that single fatal shot, we've got the video of him jumping off the backside of the building. Where is the gun when he drops 15 feet down to the grass below?
Well, if you look at the video, the gun is you'll see in the back of the when you're watching the video right there, it appears from the video here that the gun is either in the backpack or on him. When he jumps down, this is where, by the way, this part of the video, this is where we got a significant portion of the forensic evidence in the case, which we had to expedite. We had a number of assets, including fixed wing assets, to be able to fly. If obviously Salt Lake and that specific area in Provo is not around the corner from FBI labs, it was difficult. But we were able, during that scene, him grabbing that particular side of the building and jumping down, we were able to gather a significant amount of forensic information, which we expedited back to the lab, which was the key, I think, piece of information that we were able to crack this thing open.
Okay. Just looking at that video, it's hard to see the weapon, and that's why the question is still obvious to me today. Kash Patel said earlier today that he expressed to someone that he had an opportunity to take out the killer and was going to do it. Did that person do anything with that information?
Yeah, that's what we're really disturbed about. It appears that this was communicated. You see this a lot, Bill, when in targeted violence cases, assassinations, school shootings, where the individual expresses in advance, in a good swath of these cases, his desire or her desire to do these specific things. That appears to be the case here as well, where the intent component was there in advance, and the target was announced in advance prior. Now, that's the part we want to know. Did they know and not say? Now, Bill, you have to keep in mind, and I don't want anyone to jump to conclusions on this. Did they say it, hear it, and think it was some kind of a joke? That's what we're trying to find out now. But I promise you, if there's a larger network here, we're going to get that out to the public as soon as we can. We really are.
Okay, the reason why this is really important to your investigation, understanding motive that I'll get to in a moment here, is that I believe that if I've got the dates right here, that event was announced 1 week before it happened. And we've got the reporting from over the weekend that said that the killer, the accused killer now, expressed views with his family at a dinner table. And I don't know what the timeline is between when that happened. Was it hours or was it days? I mean, clearly it had to be at least a couple days, if not less. And if he also expressed this opinion that he had an opportunity to take out Kirk and was going to do it, well, when was that message transmitted?
Yeah,
from the point that Charlie was killed.
This is the troubling part of the investigation as I see it now. There appear to have been multiple warning signs. You just laid out some of them. There were people in his network, friends and family, who had stated that he had become more political, that he had become, at some parts, I believe some of his coworkers had stated that he had kind of detached himself when the topic of politics came up and walked away from them. Family members said he'd become more political, leading us to believe that this ideology had infected him and had taken over. And he was just intent, it appears, from the data we've accumulated and the channel and that note, which we have some evidence may have existed before based on the communications in that channel, that his target was obviously going to be Charlie and that people knew in advance. The question is, again, I just want to go back to what you had asked before. Did they know? Were they sure of this? Or did they hear this and just write it off? That's what we're going to have to find out. And that's what we're investigating now. Bill, this investigation is just begun. This isn't even the beginning of the beginning. yes, we have a subject in custody. Everybody's innocent until proven guilty in our constitutional republic. However, this is not done by any stretch. Our men and women out there in the Bureau have worked tirelessly all week. And I just got back to D.C. Last night. And, Cash and I were out there on the scene. We walked the scene. We went through every single component of it. We saw the evidence up close and personal. And we went out there to be able to make command decisions with our team on the ground. And I think the process, although not perfect, of course, I think the process went pretty well considering we got him in 33 hours.
Okay, yeah.
It's so easy, I think, to ask questions as a news reporter, but the actual investigation, there are so many questions that investigators have to ask. There are so many ways that investigators have to think outside the box. And all of the information that gets collected isn't coming in at the same time. So the video of him walking onto the campus, who knows when they got that? Was that after they have the video of him jumping off the building? Was that after? So we don't know the answers to that. But the media, of course, wants all of this information wrapped in a box with a nice, pretty red bow. And difficult to know all the answers to these questions because sometimes even the investigators hands-on on the scene don't know the answers right away. And sometimes it'll take days or weeks or months to find that out. So I just want Bongino, I thought, did a great job explaining. But when they call it reverse engineering, they see him jumping off that building. Now they're like, whoa, he probably touched the ledge. Or he did this and did that. And they collected forensic evidence. They found where he was laying down on the roof, the impression of his knees and his body laying on the roof there. DNA? Yeah, you bet. And all of those things are thought about, in real time as they go up there and start investigating this. Phil.
Yeah, Billy, I think you pointed that out, that where he jumps off that ledge, skin cells, touch DNA could be gathered right there. And where he was laying down, same thing. And then they found the screwdriver with his DNA on that surface of the screwdriver. And I think that you're making a great point with regard to some of the video that they collected. We don't know when they collected it, what was first, what was second. But I think Bongino made a point that I made with you guys before we went on the air. The investigation is really in its early stages. They're going to find a lot of other stuff out. I don't think they're going to have the phone dump stuff back. Conversations that take place in text messages and in chat rooms, and all of that stuff is going to eventually come forward, and they're going to be able to put everything together. It appears that he was hatching this plan within 7 to 8 days before the actual murder took place, the assassination took place. He made reference with his family a few days before. And I think that we see this in a lot of these cases. There are red flags. I mean, we know that he had now an ideology, or his political beliefs were changing. He's engaged with a trans person, and he has access to a firearm. So if you take those components and you put them together, you have an explosive result. And I really feel like a lot of times these red flags are there and they're ignored. And then if you put the other component in, that he was talking about it in an online chat. Now, I have nothing against this Discord platform or anybody that's involved in it, because maybe people think that they're saying things, but it's not serious, or they're not going to act out. But this particular individual did. So if you take all those components together, people that were on that chat platform and overheard him say these things in text message or in conversation, they had an obligation, an ethical obligation, to report it to law enforcement, and they didn't. Maybe they thought it wasn't legitimate, but let us decide that. Let law enforcement engage. Let law enforcement do their job. And perhaps this horrible assassination could have been prevented. And again, I know we see these red flags in a lot of these cases.
Mike, there is something in the law called omission. And that means a failure to act when you have the legal responsibility to do something. Does this fit omission?
Bill, It probably not, because, as you say, a crime of omission is if you fail to do an act when you are under a legal duty to act, when the law imposes duty upon you, like you're a lifeguard at a pool and a kid is drowning, you're under a legal obligation to try your best efforts to get that person. If you're a parent, if you fail in your actions, or you neglect to do your actions to take care of your responsibilities to that child, legally you can be charged with neglect of your child if they get injured. Here in a chat room, probably nobody at all, this wouldn't fit, has any legal obligation that they failed to fulfill, because legally what we call it is legal strangers. If you don't have an obligation towards someone, you're a legal stranger to them. There's no legal connection. If they somehow gave him some money, they helped him with plans. He's like, I might want to kill Charlie Kirk. And they sent him a map saying, this is the best way to do it. This is what you do. He's going to appear at UVU. Jones Hall has a really high ceiling. You climb up on the roof. That is material. That'd be different. But talking about it, everybody could always say, look, I just kind of thought he was kidding. And even if I thought he was serious, even if he said,
yeah, Mike, that would be a tough thing to prove, or that you had the legal obligation to do something. You didn't do anything. Very tough to prove that. I want to just say, Lula Morocco asked you a question, Mike.
Okay.
Do you anticipate a federal law protecting political activists, and how long will it take a law to go into effect, the Charlie Kirk law?
I don't think there'll be anything in the near future, because if you're going to have to if you say there's a law protecting, politicians, federal politicians, and let the state politicians worry about the states worry about their own, all elected officials, it's covered by a homicide statute. When you start talking about, let's say, political organizers, political activists, people who are in charge of, not-for-profits that are politically minded, you're getting very, very broad. And so I'm not sure if that would happen. And remember too, we're in a very, very polarized time. If you want to do something like that, you're going to need both parties to support it to a great extent. And I'm not so sure that you could get that at this time, maybe in the future, but the wording of it would have to be, and I would think would have to be limited to elected federal officials and not people who are politically active, but not actually elected officials.
Latisse, thank you for the $9.99 super sticker. Great coverage, fellas. I think the boyfriend knew more prior. Sergeant Mike and Phil. Yeah, you know something? I do too. I really do. I think they obviously must have been talking about it. He had moved so far to the left politically, for them to think that they didn't talk about his hatred for Charlie Kirk. I think we would all be naive to think that. And not only did he talk about it, as we know now, he acted upon it. This is the district attorney.
Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting, and he did provide those messages to police. On September 10th, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of this note. The following text exchange then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? You're joking, right?" Robinson, "I am still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." Roommate, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" Robinson, I'm sorry. Roommate, I thought they caught the person. Robinson, no, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. Roommate, why? Robinson, why did I do it? Roommate, yeah. Robinson, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Roommate, how long have you been planning this? Robinson, a bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. Robinson again, I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. IDEK if it's had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The F in messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notice bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke, all right. I'm going to have to leave it. That really effing sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine, IDK. I think that was a $2K dollar scope. Wink, wink. Robinson again, delete this exchange. Again, Robinson, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very unique. He's calling me, RN, not answering. Robinson, since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Robinson, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. Again, you are all I worry about, love. That came from Robinson. Roommate, I'm much more worried about you. Robinson, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to...
So that's a lot of evidence and a lot of interaction with the roommate, you know. So this was after the fact, but how much did the roommate, Lance Twiggs, know before this occurred? He didn't just decide to do it that day. So that's where the FBI has their work cut out for them in the digital work, to find these Discord sites, to find text messages, to find interaction on their phone, and decide whether or not there's enough to charge Lance Twiggs, or will they use Lance Twiggs as a witness in the upcoming trial. Mike.
Bill, you know, as Phil said, they have possibly an obstruction of justice charge that they can hang over his head if they need to get any sort of leverage on him. Right now, he seems to be cooperating, but you never know. But they have plenty of time. This is not the end of the investigation. It's the beginning of the investigation, and they have a lot more to uncover. My guess is he probably will, with the help of counsel, decide that he's better off working with the prosecutor's office, working with law enforcement, and actually give testimony. Now, there may, unfortunately, be some sort of immunity, perhaps, but I hope not. But I think he, in the end, he will be a witness for the prosecution.
You know, there's a lot of people that have talked about, and obviously, I think that the law enforcement did a fantastic job here. And I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, they didn't do anything. The father turned them in." The reason the father turned them in was because of the amount of coverage of this case. The video was all over every TV station on this earth. So people were recognizing him, and the parents recognized him, and other people recognized him. So that is because law enforcement, and in this case, the FBI, made the decision to almost immediately, well, it wasn't immediately, but it was pretty fast, to put the video out there. And we spoke about on another show that in the Boston Marathon bombing, the FBI made a huge mistake. They withheld the photos of the Tsarnaev brothers, who were the Boston bombers, Zokar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev. They didn't put them out for 3 days. And as a result, and I think I can make almost a direct correlation to this, a campus security police officer was murdered by the Tsarnaev brothers. And perhaps if their pictures were out there, maybe they would have got caught, or maybe they wouldn't have been so confident about showing their faces in public. And then after they killed the campus police officer, they got in a huge shootout with the Watertown police from Massachusetts, in which they lost the gunfight because one of the brothers was killed.
They were also throwing bombs too, Billy. If
they were throwing bombs out of their car at the radio cars, and it was like the guys from Watertown. They did. I mean, when I talk about that case, I get tears in my eyes. They did an unbelievable job. In fact, Sergeant McClellan, we had, I think we had on our show once many years ago.
Yes.
And he was the guy, if you see the documentary, he used his car to just roll along as he used it to cover himself up as they were shooting semi-automatic rounds at him from an AK-47. So in that instance, I think the FBI made a huge, huge mistake in not putting their photographs out there, and they paid the piper. And this one, they didn't want to make the same mistake. Phil?
Yeah, I think that was a bone of contention at the time. And perhaps, as you said, based on the fact that they didn't release that video quick enough and that poor college campus officer was killed, and then that ensuing bomb throwing and gunfight that took place, they did that in this case. And I think the parents, who are going to be key to this whole prosecution, believe it or not, they recognized him from the videos. They questioned him about it, and eventually he confessed to them. Now, I wanted to throw this question at Mike because one of the talking heads on the news today, on cable news, said, you know, it's juries don't like when parents have to testify against their own children. So, Mike, the question I'm going to pose to you is this. Apparently, he made statements to his parents implicating himself in the assassination. Detectives interview them. They put that down on their reports. Is that enough to present in court? Let's say bring the detective in and say, I interviewed Mrs. Robinson and she stated the following, or Mr. Robinson has stated the following, or do the parents actually have to testify, Mike?
Bill, normally, yes, absolutely. Under all circumstances, you prepare a report, a DD5 follow-up, as we call it, you know, as you guys know in the NYPD. And if you typed in that you responded to a location, a certain time, you interviewed the parents, and they told you this, blah, 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 blah. That's a police report. That's excellent. That can be used to refresh your memory of their conversation with you. Now, the thing is, if they are available and they're not missing, so we could bring them in to verify, a prosecutor could subpoena them and they would have to come in. But and if they don't want to, it's too bad. If they have to testify, they'll testify. But if the prosecutor does not want to do, as you say, have the jury see parents testifying against their son, they'll still get the information through the investigatory detective introducing the report. However, it might, it's not as maybe powerful as having the actual parents do it. But if it is true that the juries don't like it, to see and may be upset with the parents. Maybe it would be better to have just the investigator, the detective, respond and recollect and read from his report and talk about what the circumstances of that interview, what they said to him, and that sort of thing. So either way, it's going to, whatever they say,
they could get it out there based on the fact
there.
that,
It will be used. But you just the parent thing, that's up to the prosecutor if he wants to drag them in.
I think the point that the person on cable news was trying to make was that, there's this, a husband can't testify to a wife, or a parent can't testify against the child. So I think that's what they were getting at. And I just wanted to know if they'd be able to present that interview without actually presenting the person. Okay, good.
Oh, yeah.
Jennifer Kornman from the chat. It is clear the roommate isn't involved, and there's no evidence saying he is. It's absolutely not clear.
Not yet. Not yet, anyway.
We shouldn't be putting it out there. He is. No, we will put it out there that he is, because we don't know. And he knows a hell of a lot about the murder of Charlie Kirk. He knows a lot about it. So let's not take the fish off the hook before you even caught him.
I don't think there's a target on his back either, because he's in police. He's working along with the police. I'm sure they're providing protection for him. And if he stays as a witness, from working on homicide cases, witnesses are always provided protection. And I don't think that that's going to be a concern at this point. It does look like the police believe, based on the statements of the district attorney, what was his name? District Attorney Jeff Gray earlier today, who's the prosecutor on the case. They believe that he had no knowledge of it prior to the actual murder. So they're comfortable with that at this point. Now, in this light of investigation, if they uncover something going down the line, then I think things could change very quickly for Lance Twiggs. But at this point, to say that it's 100%, no, I don't think it's 100%. We don't know that yet. A lot of investigative techniques have to be followed, and information has to come back before I think they'll put a stamp of approval and say, yeah, 100% he's not involved in it.
Jennifer Kornman, exactly. You don't know that and have no evidence of that, because you know something, probably about 3% or 5% of the total evidence that the police and the FBI have is released to the press. So for you to say there's absolutely no, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. You sound like the media, because that they were saying that a day after this, and it's so not true. And as I said, and I will repeat 1,000,000 times, investigation takes time.
100%.
And if you want accurate, true investigation, it takes even more time. I used to love when I'd be in my office and I get a call from the chief of detectives office. The chief needs to know this. I said, is he like the Wizard of Oz? I don't have the answers. How am I going to tell him something I don't know? And because he's the chief doesn't make me want to invent information for him. Phil.
Yeah, with regard to that last comment, I stated earlier, I think he's culpable for a criminal charge based on the fact if he destroyed that note. Now, I don't think that it's a major charge. It's not going to be something like murder, obviously, or conspiracy to commit murder. But I think that the fact that they said there's only a picture of the note. So what happened to the note? Did he flush it down the toilet bowl? Did he destroy it some way, somehow? And now he decides he's going to cooperate. We have, in the past, taken people that were maybe, not so involved in a crime, or they're involved peripherally, but we take them and we make them a witness, and you don't charge that crime. So to say that he's 100% not involved, no, I think that there's culpability based on the fact that he could have destroyed evidence in this case, and we don't know what's going to come forward from the investigation, from the text messages, the chats online, all that different stuff on his computer. And if there is a conspiracy before the murder takes place, then we could see charges against Lance Twiggs.
Lula Morocco has a question for the Detective Phil. Please explain your expertise in the security similarities and differences between this shooting and the one in Butler. What can be done to prevent this again moving forward? Well, I'll just do a quick, I'm going to let Phil answer this, but how about having better security and more than 8 security guards for 3,000 people? That's the first thing. Go ahead, Phil, you can answer it.
Well, right off the bat, when the president speaks now, they have a bulletproof or a bullet resistant shield in front of them. Obviously, that could be something that could be utilized during any kind of a political event, like when Charlie Kirk spoke on college campuses. Body armor, there's stories out there he was wearing body armor. He didn't wear it that day. He was wearing it that day. We don't know for sure. Body armor is one of the things. And again, we talked about it. We said it on our last show, I think, Bill, the magnetometers, where they did have use of magnetometers in previous events that were held on college campuses. I think the fact that they felt that this Utah University was not such a high threat level, perhaps that's why the security was dialed back a little bit. I don't know that for sure. I'm just surmising. But what happened in Butler, I think, was a total, as we say in police jargon, it was a total clusterfuck. I have to use that word. And there was security protocols. I mean, there was a SWAT team that was in the building that the shooter was on the roof. They were inside the building. Nobody was checking the roofs except the counter sniper team that was able to take out the sniper. But there's a lot of things. I don't want to go through all of them. There's a lot of things that could be done. And I think we just pointed out a few of them to answer that question.
J.A. from the chat question, do you think too much information is released to the public? 100%. Yes, 100%. It is. You know, the public has a right to know to a certain level. They don't have a right to know everything, especially if it compromises the investigation. And releasing too much information can compromise an investigation. Lula Morocco, thanks you, Phil, for that answer.
I'm answering them right now.
I want to put the from this on Law and Crime up on the screen.
Since his arrest, Tyler Robinson appears in Utah court via Zoom from jail.
Roommate, why? Robinson, why did I do it? Roommate, yeah. Robinson, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out.
And just wait until you see the text messages that we now have that Robinson allegedly sent his lover roommate after the shooting and what he allegedly told that roommate to do that led to even more charges against this accused killer, a killer who could be put to death if he's found guilty of the charges he now faces. We're on the case, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart.
Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, a first-degree felony. The state is further alleging aggravating factors on counts 1 and 2 because the defendant is believed to have targeted Charlie Kirk based on Charlie Kirk's political expression and did so knowing that children were present and would witness the homicide.
One of the things they put in the arrest affidavit was that not only, of course, the main charge in this case is murder, which is a capital case in Utah. He's eligible for the death penalty, but he also put in danger everyone else that was in that crowd. So he's being charged with that also. I think there was 7 total charges, but it's interesting that this does make him eligible for the death penalty in the state of Utah.
The state is also charging defendant with count 3, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony for moving and concealing the rifle used in the shooting. Count 4, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony for disposing the clothing he wore during the shooting. Count 5, witness tampering, a third-degree felony for directing his roommate to delete his incriminating texts. Count 6, witness.
Whoa, right there, Mike. Directing his roommate to delete his incriminating text. What if his roommate, as Phil said earlier, got rid of that photo?
That's not good for Mr.
Right, he could be charged if he admitted
it appears that he may have, because they said they only have a picture of it. The roommate may have screenshotted it or taken a picture of it and then destroyed it. So, I mean, if they have the actual note, then it's okay. But in my opinion, it seems like he destroyed it. He flushed it down the toilet bowl or whatever. And they're going to forego the charge for that because he's cooperating, giving them so much information, you know?
Yes.
So in a different scenario, he would have been charged.
Absolutely.
If he would have admitted that and not been cooperative, they would have just said, we'll be right over, you know, we're going to slap the cuffs on him.
Exactly.
But right now, because he's cooperating, that doesn't mean he's not complicit. Could they perhaps charge him down the road? No, this is probably a district attorney decision. He's cooperating. Let's keep him as a witness.
Tampering, a third-degree felony for directing his roommate to stay silent if police questioned him. And count 7, commission of a violent offense in the presence of a child, a Class A misdemeanor, for committing homicide, knowing that children were present and may have seen or heard the murder and did so based on Charlie Kirk's political expression.
Charlie Kirk, of course, was a political figure. Thousands of people came to hear him speak at Utah Valley University as one of the leading voices of young conservatives in this country. But that's not the only reason that there was major suspicion that this was an alleged political assassination. We know that Robinson, once he was arrested, had become more political in recent years, according to his family. We saw in the bullets left by the rifle that he allegedly left behind lines like, "Hey, fascist, catch," that politics may have been the motivation for killing Charlie Kirk. But today, for the first time, prosecutors made that known, as you heard there, because of some of the text messages we're going to talk about and some of the statements that Robinson had made over the last couple of years. Now, another major update coming in was related to Robinson's roommate, and this is where we get into these text messages. Now, that roommate's been identified as a member of the transgender community, a man who's transitioning to be a woman, and they had been in a relationship with Robinson. Robinson is facing 2 counts of obstruction of justice for allegedly trying to stop that roommate from speaking to law enforcement and for allegedly telling the roommate to delete messages about the shooting. Now, I want to be clear that law enforcement has said that this roommate has been very cooperative in the investigation and they are not facing charges at this time. Prosecutors, though, just unveiled the bombshell text messages that Tyler Robinson allegedly sent that roommate. Take a listen.
Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting, and he did provide those messages to police. On September 10th, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of this note. The following text exchange, then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? You're joking, right?" Robinson, "I am still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." Roommate, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" Robinson, I am. I'm sorry." Roommate, "I thought they caught the person." Robinson, "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering."
Before we get back to this episode of On the Case, I need to take a moment and...
"Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it." Roommate, "How long have you been planning this?" Robinson, "A bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it." Robinson again, "I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. IDEK if it's had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The F in messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notice bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke, all right. I'm going to have to leave it. That really effing sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine, IDK. I think that was a $2K scope. Wink, wink.
So there he is talking to his roommate, his lover, Lance Twiggs, and he's outlining it, and in sort of a way he's joking about it, you know. He's worried about the gun. He just killed another human being, and he's worried about recovering his grandfather's gun that was given to him as a gift, and, you know, $2,000 scope on it, and that's how he was so accurate in the shooting at this. But he's sort of taking this very lightly for someone whose life is over. You know, he's either going to get the death penalty or he's going to get life in prison without parole. He's 22 years old. I just want to say something that really bothers me about this case, and not just about this case, but about our society. Whether Charlie Kirk was a conservative or a progressive shouldn't have meant anything. It was a human being that was exercising their freedom of speech rights and was killed for it. And whether it was a Charlie Kirk or could have been a progressive person, no one has the right to take another person's life over something they're saying. If you disagree with it, that's too damn bad. You live in a country where the freedom of speech is one of the highest value things we have in the Constitution. And it's sort of disgusting that seeing people on both sides can't understand this, you know? And we've seen people on the left murdered and we've seen people on the right murdered. And either way, it's despicable. It's horrific. And everyone must talk out against this, that this is no way in a civil society to deal with things. And we mentioned on our show the other night, there's a lot of similarities to this case to Luigi Mangione and the murder of Brian Thompson, who was the CEO of United Healthcare. There seemed to be more politics behind that in regards to they made this CEO of United Healthcare evil, that he personally turned down the claims of poor people submitting healthcare claims. So kill him. Yeah, let's just kill him. And that's where we are in this world. And that's how someone, this little nutcase, you know, Tyler Robinson, felt it was okay to murder Charlie Kirk. And I just felt that I had to say that. And it's really despicable. Folks, our new sponsor, FanDuel, is a sponsor of the Police Off the Cuff podcast. And you can bet on almost any sport using FanDuel on the internet. Guys, your final thoughts.
Should I go first, Bill, or Mike? Just the final thoughts. A quick comment from Lindsay. Charlie Kirk died on the battlefield of ideas. I think that says a lot right there. He had an idea that if he spoke with people about differing views than his own opinions, and he gave them a platform, which I talked about the other night, he thought that perhaps people could meet in the middle. And I think that's the thing that's missing in politics today, especially in our country, that we don't have any kind of give and take. Let's have an idea on this side and an idea on that side that's different. But you know what? Let's try to meet in the middle. I think that perhaps can get progress and help for the American people. No one, I said this the other night and I'll say it again, no one should ever meet the fate that Charlie Kirk met over a difference of opinion. This guy was obviously misled by whether he was indoctrinated online or whatever it was. He was very, very wrong in what he did. And I just wish that someone had raised the red flag before he was able to carry out this wicked assassination. Thoughts and prayers to Charlie Kirk's family, friends, and to our nation, because we need to bring down the heat, and we need to have ideas, and we need to meet in the middle.
Absolutely. Professor Mike, your final thoughts.
Anyone who is celebrating in any way the killing, the outright cold-blooded killing of a fellow American for expressing his constitutionally protected views on any subject should be ashamed of themselves, because if it might be you someday expressing your views out in public. So if you believe that he should be shot for what he said, well, then you're going to make yourself a target. That's terrible. We're better than that. And this is disgusting.
100%.
100%. Folks, again, if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share us, and make comments. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. On behalf of myself, Professor Mike Geary, Detective Phil Grimaldi, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great night, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone.
One episode just ain't enough.